You are in the middle of a conversation. Someone asks you something simple, something you know, something you could answer in your own language without even thinking. And then it happens. Your mind goes blank. Completely blank, like someone switched off a light inside your head. You search for words and find nothing. You open your mouth and nothing comes out. Your heart starts beating faster. Your face feels hot. And the silence between you and the other person grows longer and more painful with every second. You know the answer. You know the English. But your brain just stopped working. If you have felt this, I want you to know something right now. Something that most English teachers never say directly. That moment of freezing has nothing to do with your level of English. Nothing. It is not because your vocabulary is too small. It is not because your grammar is weak. It is not because you are not smart enough or not ready enough. It is because of the way your brain is trying to work in that moment. And once you understand exactly what is happening inside your mind when you freeze, everything changes. Because you can fix a thinking problem, you can train a confidence problem. But first, you have to stop blaming your English. Today, that is exactly what we are going to do. We are going to go deep into why freezing happens, and step by step we are going to dismantle it. Not with quick tips that feel good for one day and then disappear. With real techniques that change how your brain works in English conversations. Stay with me. Because what I am about to share is going to feel very different from anything you have heard before. Let us start with the most important thing you need to understand about freezing. Your brain is incredibly powerful, but it has limits. And one of those limits is this: it cannot do too many difficult things at exactly the same time. Think about a computer for a moment. A good computer, fast processor, lots of memory. It can handle many tasks, but open too many heavy programs at once and watch what happens. The screen slows down. The cursor stops moving. The machine freezes. Your brain works exactly the same way. When you try to speak English and at the same time think about your grammar and at the same time check your pronunciation and at the same time search for the right vocabulary and at the same time worry about making a mistake and at the same time monitor how the other person is reacting to you. That is not one task. That is 6 tasks running simultaneously, and your brain cannot handle all of them without slowing down, without freezing. This is what happens in that painful moment of silence. Your brain is not broken. Your brain is overloaded. And once you understand that, the solution becomes clear. You do not need more English. You need to reduce the load on your brain while you speak. You need to remove the pressure that is causing the freeze. And the first and most important pressure you need to remove is the pressure of perfection. Here is something that changed the way I think about speaking English. Something simple but deeply true. Communication does not require perfect English. Communication requires clear ideas. Read that again. Communication does not require perfect English. Communication requires clear ideas. Think about the most fluent English speakers you have ever heard. Native speakers, people who have spoken English their entire lives. Listen to them carefully sometime. Really carefully. You will notice something that surprises you. They pause. They repeat words. They start a sentence and then change direction halfway through. They say things like, "You know what I mean?" Or "It was kind of like," or "So basically." They make small grammatical errors. They use informal language that is technically incorrect, but nobody stops them. Nobody corrects them. Nobody stops the conversation and says, "Excuse me, your sentence structure was wrong there." Because nobody cares. Because the message was clear. That is what fluent speakers understand that most learners do not. The goal of speaking is not to be correct. The goal of speaking is to be understood. And you can be understood with very simple English. Much simpler than you think. Imagine someone asks you, "What did you do yesterday?" A typical learner freezes immediately because they start trying to construct a perfectly structured response. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to engage in productive study activities and educational viewing experiences. Nobody talks like that, not even native speakers. You can simply say, "Yesterday I studied English and watched some videos." Done. Message delivered. Conversation continues. No freeze. Simple English is not weak English. Simple English is powerful English because it flows from your mouth quickly and naturally, because your brain can produce it without overloading, because the other person understands it immediately. There is a phrase I want you to memorize: not perfect English, continuous English. Continuous English. Continuous English means you keep going, even when the sentence is not perfect, even when you pause for a second, even when you repeat a word. The movement never stops, because when your speaking continues, your brain stays on. Your brain stays active, and an active brain does not freeze. The moment you give yourself permission to be imperfect, something extraordinary happens. The fear drops. The tension in your throat releases. Your ideas start moving toward your mouth instead of getting stuck behind it. That permission, that one small mental shift, that is where fluency actually begins. Now let us talk about the structure of what you say, because this is where most learners create their own problems. There is a belief that lives inside almost every English learner, a belief so deeply planted that most people never question it. The belief is this: long sentences mean good English. If I speak in long, complex sentences, people will think my English is advanced. If I use complicated vocabulary, people will be impressed. This belief is wrong, and it is costing you every conversation. Here is the truth that fluent speakers know: long, complicated sentences are not the goal. Clear, connected ideas are the goal. Think about how children learn their first language, any language. They do not begin with complex syntax and advanced vocabulary. They begin with short, simple sentences. I want water. I like this. I am tired. And the world understands them perfectly. Then, over time, those short sentences start connecting. I want water because I am thirsty. I like this, but I prefer that. I am tired, so I am going to sleep. Short sentences first, connection second, complexity last. But most adult learners try to skip the first two steps and go directly to complexity. And that is exactly where the freeze happens. So here's what I want you to practice. Build your answers from small pieces. Someone asks you, "What did you do last weekend?" Instead of trying to build one long, perfect sentence, you build several short ones. Last weekend was quiet. I stayed home. I watched a movie. I also practiced some English. Look at that answer. Each sentence is simple, but together they create a complete, natural, fluent-sounding response. This is exactly how confident speakers talk. Not one long, complicated sentence. Many small, connected sentences. And here is the beautiful thing about this technique. When you are speaking in short sentences, your brain has breathing room. After each small sentence, your brain gets a tiny moment of rest. And in that rest, it prepares the next sentence. No overload, no freeze. There is a word in English I want to give you right now: cadence. Cadence means the natural rhythm of speech, the way sentences rise and fall, the natural stops and starts. Short sentences actually improve your cadence because they create natural pauses, and natural pauses make you sound more confident, not less. The speaker who rushes through one long, complicated sentence sounds nervous. The speaker who delivers clear, short sentences with natural pauses sounds composed, authoritative, in control. So stop trying to sound advanced. Start sounding clear. Clear always wins. Now let us talk about a problem that happens before any words come out at all: the beginning. For many people, the first moment of a conversation is the hardest. The conversation has not started yet and already the brain is panicking. What do I say first? What if I say something wrong? What if there is an awkward silence? This panic before the first word is one of the main causes of freezing. And the solution is one of the simplest techniques in this entire video. Prepare your opening. A conversation starter is a small sentence that opens the door. It does not need to be clever. It does not need to be impressive. It just needs to open the door. And once the door is open, the conversation can walk through on its own. Here are some real ones you can use right now. When meeting someone new, how are you today? Where are you from? What do you do? In a learning environment, are you learning English too? How long have you been studying? What is the hardest part of English for you? In a work or casual situation, how was your day? Did anything interesting happen today? What are you working on these days? These phrases are simple. They might even feel too simple, but that is the point. Simple opens conversations. Complicated closes them. And here is the key insight about conversation starters that most people miss. A good conversation starter does not require you to say much. It requires the other person to say something. And when they say something, they give you material. They give you ideas. They give you the next thing to respond to. Think of a conversation like throwing and catching a ball. You throw the question. They catch it and throw it back with their answer. Now you have the ball again. You can throw another question or respond to what they said. Back and forth. Back and forth. The conversation moves on its own as long as someone keeps throwing. And your job in the beginning is not to say something impressive. Your job is to throw the first ball. That is it. When you have 2 or 3 conversation starters ready in your mind before you walk into a situation, something shifts. The fear of the first moment disappears. Because your brain already has an answer to the question, what do I say first? Preparation removes that specific panic. And when that panic disappears, speaking becomes 10 times easier before you have even opened your mouth. Now here is something that will completely change how you experience conversations. And it is the opposite of what most people expect to hear. Stop thinking about what to say next. When most learners are in a conversation, their brain is running 2 programs at once. Program 1 is trying to understand what the other person is saying. Program 2 is panicking about what to say next. And because the brain is split between these 2 tasks, it does not do either one well. It misses parts of what the other person says, and it cannot build a good response because it does not have good information. This is one of the most common reasons conversations fall apart. Not because the learner's English is too weak, but because they stopped listening. Here is what changes everything. Focus entirely on the other person. Listen to every word. Try to understand not just the meaning, but the feeling behind it. What are they really saying? What do they care about? What are they trying to express? When you listen with this kind of attention, something almost magical happens. The other person gives you everything you need to respond. Their words contain your next sentence. Their ideas contain your next question. Their experience contains your next comment. You stop creating responses from nothing. You start reacting to something real. And reacting is so much easier than creating. There's a principle that great communicators use. Some call it the 80-20 rule of conversation. Spend about 80% of your time listening and 20% speaking. Most learners have this completely backwards. They spend 80% of their mental energy trying to speak and only 20% actually listening. Flip it and watch what happens to your conversations. When you listen deeply, you also learn. You hear how natural English flows. You hear how sentences connect. You hear how native speakers express ideas without complicated grammar. Your brain is absorbing all of this even when you are not consciously studying. This is called passive acquisition, and it is one of the most powerful forces in language learning. So the next time you are in a conversation and you feel the panic rising, do not reach for your next sentence. Reach for your attention. Put it fully on the other person. Listen first. Speak second. This single habit will change your conversations more than any grammar lesson ever will. And now let us talk about the fuel that keeps conversations going. Because even when you are listening well, even when you have a good opening, there is still one moment that kills many conversations. The silence after someone finishes speaking. They said something. You understood it, but now you do not know what to say next. The conversation stalls. The energy drops, and the freeze appears. There is one technique that almost never fails in this moment. Ask a question. Not just any question, a follow-up question. A question that grows directly from what the other person just said. They say, I started learning English last year. You ask, What made you want to start? They answer. You ask another question from their answer. Each question creates an answer. Each answer creates the next question. The conversation becomes a chain, and each link grows naturally from the one before it. Follow-up questions do something else that is just as important. They show the other person that you are listening, that you are interested, that what they are saying matters to you. And people love this feeling. When someone asks thoughtful follow-up questions, you feel seen, you feel valued, you feel like this person genuinely wants to understand you. This feeling makes people open up. They share more. They speak more comfortably, and a more comfortable conversation partner makes the entire exchange easier for you. Curiosity is one of the most powerful communication tools in the world, and it requires almost no English to use. You just have to be genuinely interested. And then ask about what you are interested in. The person who is the most curious is usually the best conversationalist in the room. Not the person with the most English. The most curious person. We will continue in part 2. Take a short breath and come back ready, because what comes next is where everything changes. Welcome back. If you made it to part 2, that already tells me something important about you. You are serious, and serious people are the ones who actually change. Let us continue. Let us talk about something that every English learner knows they should do and almost nobody actually does consistently. Speak every single day, not when you feel like it, not when conditions are perfect, not once a week during your English class, every day. I know that sounds obvious, and yet the number of learners who spend years reading English, studying grammar, watching videos, understanding almost everything they hear but almost never actually opening their mouth is enormous. And then they wonder why speaking still feels hard. Here's the truth. Understanding English and producing English are two completely different skills. They live in different parts of your brain. They require different training, and you cannot develop one by practicing the other. You could spend 10 years reading and listening to English and still freeze the moment someone speaks to you directly. Because your mouth has not been trained, because your brain has not learned to move from idea to spoken word quickly and automatically. Think about a musician. You can watch hundreds of piano tutorials. You can understand music theory perfectly. You can hear the difference between a good performance and a bad one. But if you never touch the keys, you will never play. Speaking English works exactly the same way. Your brain needs to build what neuroscientists call automatic language pathways. These are the mental highways that allow words to travel from thought to mouth without heavy conscious processing, without the painful searching that leads to freezing. But these pathways are only built through one thing: repetition, real speaking, out loud, regularly. And here is the most important thing I want you to hear about this. You do not need another person to build these pathways. You can practice alone. Right now, wherever you are, you can say out loud what you are doing. I am reading. I am learning English. I am sitting in my room. This is interesting. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But what you are doing in those moments is training your brain to convert thoughts into English automatically. You are building the habit of English output. You can narrate your day. You can describe what you see around you. You can retell a story you heard or watched. You can give your opinion on something you read. 5 minutes today, 10 minutes tomorrow, 15 the next day. Small amounts, every day, without exception. Over weeks, this builds momentum. Over months, it builds fluency. And over time, your brain begins to surprise you. Words that used to take 5 seconds to find start arriving in 1 second. Sentences that used to feel like construction projects start flowing naturally. That is not talent. That is training. Now I want to talk about a specific enemy of fluency that most learners never address. An enemy that is invisible but extremely powerful. Speed. Trying to speak too fast. Many learners believe that fluency means fast. They hear native speakers and think the speed is what makes them sound fluent. So they try to rush. They try to push words out quickly before their brain has time to organize them, And this is exactly backwards. When you rush, your brain does not have time to prepare the next word, the next sentence, the next idea. And in that gap between what your mouth wants to say and what your brain has ready, the freeze happens. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fluent. Listen carefully to any truly confident speaker. In any language, they are not rushing. They are moving at a pace that allows their brain to work comfortably. They pause when they need to. They breathe between ideas. They take their time, and because they take their time, they never run out of words. Here is something that will change how you feel about pausing. Native speakers pause all the time. They say things like, "Let me think," or "well," or "so." They say, "You know what I mean." They hesitate for a half second between ideas. These are not errors. These are normal features of natural human speech. A pause does not tell the other person your English is weak. A pause tells them you are thinking carefully before you speak. And thinking carefully before you speak is a sign of intelligence, not limitation. So give yourself permission to slow down. Take a breath before you begin. Speak at the pace that allows your brain to stay one step ahead of your mouth. When your brain is ahead of your mouth, you never freeze. Now I want to address something that happens inside the brain before the mouth ever moves, something that most English teachers completely ignore. And I think it is one of the most powerful pieces of this entire conversation. Most learners think in grammar while they speak. Is this the right tense? Should I use have or has here? Is this preposition correct? Should I say on or in? While all of these questions are happening inside the mind, the conversation keeps moving forward, and the moment to speak passes. By the time the grammar questions are answered, the topic has changed and the opportunity is gone. This is the grammar freeze, and it destroys more conversations than any vocabulary gap ever could. Fluent speakers do not think in grammar, they think in ideas. What is the main thing I want to say? What is the core message? What feeling do I want to express? Once the idea is clear, the words follow, imperfectly sometimes, but they follow. Here is something that will free you immediately. Grammar improves because you speak, not the other way around. When you speak regularly, your brain hears correct patterns. It absorbs natural sentence structures. It begins to recognize what sounds right and what does not. Without studying a single grammar rule, children never study grammar before speaking. They listen, they attempt, they adjust, they speak again. And slowly grammar enters their language not through memorization, but through use. Your brain can learn exactly the same way. So when someone asks you a question, do not ask yourself, is this grammar correct? Ask yourself, what is my idea? Then speak that idea in whatever English you have available. Even if it comes out as yesterday I go market, I buy fruit. The meaning is clear, the conversation continues, and the next time you say it, it will come out slightly better. Because your brain is always adjusting, always improving through the act of speaking itself. Now let us talk about the deepest fear. The one that sits underneath all the other fears and powers them all. The fear of making mistakes. What if I say something wrong? What if people notice? What if they think my English is bad? What if they laugh? I want you to hear this clearly, because I mean every word of it. Every single fluent English speaker you have ever heard made thousands of mistakes while learning. Every single one. They mispronounced words embarrassingly. They used grammar that made native speakers wince. They chose vocabulary that meant something completely different from what they intended. They had moments of silence so long they wanted to disappear. And then they kept going. That kept going is the entire secret. The learners who became fluent are not the ones who never made mistakes. They are the ones who made mistakes and continued anyway. The ones who treated each error not as evidence of failure but as evidence of movement. Making a mistake means you tried. Staying silent means you did not. Which one builds fluency? There's a mindset that changes everything about how you experience mistakes. Instead of thinking, I made a mistake, think, my brain just learned something. Because that is literally what is happening. Every time you use the wrong word and someone does not understand you, your brain records that result. Next time, it tries something different. Every time you use the wrong tense and then hear the correct version from someone else, your brain adjusts. This is not failure. This is the learning mechanism itself working exactly as it should. So adopt what I call the keep talking mindset. Whatever happens in a conversation, you do not stop. You made a mistake. Keep talking. You used the wrong word. Keep talking. You forgot a grammar rule. Keep talking. Because the moment you stop, your brain starts treating speaking as a dangerous activity. And the more your brain believes speaking is dangerous, the more it freezes to protect you from that danger. The moment you keep going, your brain starts treating speaking as a normal activity. And normal activities do not require freezing. Communication is not a performance where mistakes are penalized. Communication is an exchange where ideas are shared. And as long as your idea reaches the other person, communication succeeded. Now let us talk about training your mouth directly. Because there is a physical dimension to speaking that most people completely ignore. Speaking a language is partly physical. Your mouth, your tongue, your lips, your jaw, they all need to learn how to move in new ways. English makes sounds that many other languages do not. English has a rhythm, a musicality, a way of stressing certain words and swallowing others that is completely different from what your mouth grew up doing. And the only way to train your mouth is to use it. There is a practice technique that is remarkably effective and requires nothing except a small amount of your time each day. Read out loud. Take any short piece of English. A paragraph from an article. A few sentences from a video transcript. The description on the back of a product in your kitchen. It does not matter what it is. Read it out loud, slowly, clearly, with attention to every sound. When you do this, several things happen simultaneously. Your brain processes the meaning. Your mouth practices the sounds. Your ears hear your own voice speaking English. And your brain starts building the connection between thinking in English and producing English sound. Many learners feel uncomfortable hearing their own voice in English. It sounds strange. It sounds wrong. They feel shy. This discomfort is completely normal, and it disappears with repetition. The more you hear your own voice speaking English, the more familiar it becomes. The more familiar it becomes, less strange it feels. And when your own English voice stops feeling strange to you, speaking in front of others stops feeling terrifying. 10 minutes of reading out loud each day is more valuable than an hour of silent studying, because it trains the part of you that actually needs training for speaking, the mouth, the breath, the voice. And now I want to introduce you to one more technique, a technique used by many of the most fluent language learners in the world. It is called shadowing. Shadowing means you listen to a real English speaker and you repeat what they say as closely as possible. You try to copy their rhythm. You try to copy their pronunciation. You try to copy the way their voice rises and falls. Not to become that person, but to absorb how natural English actually sounds and moves. Here's how you do it. Find a short video or audio of someone speaking naturally. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Listen once. Then play it again and repeat every sentence immediately after you hear it. Try to match the speed. Try to match the tone. Try to feel the rhythm in your own mouth. This exercise does something that reading and studying cannot do. It trains your brain to recognize and reproduce the patterns of natural spoken English. When you hear the same sentence structures repeated in your own voice many times, your brain begins to own them. They stop being foreign patterns you have to remember. They become automatic. They become yours. Think about how musicians learn. They listen to a song. They play it again and again. They do not think about each individual note. Eventually, the song lives in their fingers. Speaking a language can work the same way. When you shadow regularly, something starts to happen in your conversations. Natural phrases appear in your speech without you having to search for them. Your rhythm begins to sound more native. Your confidence grows because your brain has evidence that it can produce real English. shadowing plus reading out loud plus daily speaking practice. These three together are a complete physical training program for your speaking. They address the parts of fluency that most people never train at all. And now, the vocabulary section. 10 words and phrases from today that will genuinely improve your English speaking and your English life. The first word is fluency. Say it this way, fluency. Fluency means the ability to speak a language smoothly and naturally without stopping too often. Notice that fluency is not the same as perfection. A native speaker might say, her fluency in Spanish really helped her get the job. The memory hook. Think of fluid, which means flowing like water. Fluency is your English flowing like water. Fluency is your English flowing like water. Smooth, continuous, natural. The second is overloaded. Say it this way, overwhelmed. When your brain is overloaded, it has too much to process at once and starts to slow down or shut down. A native speaker might say, I was so overloaded with work last week that I could not think straight. The memory hook. Think of a truck carrying too much weight. When it is overloaded, it moves slowly and might break down. Your brain does the same thing. The third is cadence. Say it this way, cadence. Cadence means the natural rhythm of speech, the rises and falls, the stops and starts, the musical pattern of how language sounds. A native speaker might say, I love the cadence of her voice. It is so calm and confident. The memory hook. Think of a march. Soldiers walk in cadence, in a steady, confident rhythm. Great speakers have a cadence that carries you forward. The fourth is acquire. Say it this way, acquire. To acquire something means to gain it gradually through experience over time. You acquire a language through exposure and practice. A native speaker might say, she acquired her accent after living in London for 5 years. The memory hook. Think of a squirrel collecting nuts. It acquires them slowly, one by one, and builds a store over time. Language is acquired the same way. The fifth is automatic. Say it this way, automatic. When something is automatic, it happens without conscious thought or deliberate effort. You do not have to think about it. It just happens. A native speaker might say, after years of driving, changing gears became completely automatic. The memory hook. Think of a machine. A machine performs its task automatically without stopping to decide each time. When your speaking becomes automatic, fluency is there. The sixth is hesitate. Say it this way, hesitate. To hesitate means to pause before doing something, often because of uncertainty or nervousness. In conversation, a small hesitation is natural. A native speaker might say, do not hesitate to ask me if you need help. The memory hook. Think of standing at the edge of a pool deciding whether to jump. That moment of standing there is hesitation. We all hesitate sometimes. Confident speakers hesitate briefly and then jump. The seventh is awkward. Say it this way, awkward. Awkward means uncomfortable, strange, or socially difficult. A conversation can feel awkward when there is an uncomfortable silence. A native speaker might say, it was so awkward when neither of us knew what to say next. The memory hook. Think of an angle that does not fit. Something angular and uncomfortable that does not sit right. That uncomfortable feeling is awkward. The eighth is consistent. Say it this way, consistent. Consistent means doing something regularly in the same way over time without stopping. Consistent practice is the foundation of all skill development. A native speaker might say, the key to improving is being consistent, even when you do not feel like it. The memory hook. Think of a river. A consistent river flows every day without stopping. It does not flow only when the weather is nice. Consistency is that constant flow. The ninth is absorb. Say it this way, absorb. To absorb something means to take it in gradually and make it part of yourself. You absorb language through listening and exposure. A native speaker might say, after living in the country for a year, he had really absorbed the local culture. The memory hook. Think of a sponge. A sponge absorbs water until it is full of it. Your brain absorbs English the same way through consistent exposure. The 10th phrase is keep talking mindset. Say it this way, keep talking mindset. Say it this way, keep talking mindset. This phrase means the mental decision to continue speaking even when you make mistakes or feel uncertain. Instead of stopping when something goes wrong, you keep moving. A native speaker might say, the best thing about her is her keep talking mindset. She never freezes, she just keeps going. The memory hook. Think of a train. Trains do not stop at every small bump in the track. They keep moving. That is the keep talking mindset. Use these words this week. Say them out loud. Put them in sentences. Use them when you speak to someone. The more you use a word in real situations, the more deeply it enters your language. Now let me bring everything together into something you can actually use starting today. The reason you freeze when speaking English is not a mystery. Your brain is overloaded with too many tasks at once. The pressure of perfection, the fear of mistakes, the habit of thinking in grammar instead of ideas, the untrained mouth, the under-practiced voice. Every single one of those things can be changed. Not with one magic session, not with one motivational video. With daily practice. Small, consistent, honest. Speak in short sentences. Give your brain breathing room. Prepare 2 or 3 conversation openers. Remove the panic of the first moment. Listen more than you speak. Let the other person give you your next response. Ask follow-up questions. Keep the ball in the air. Slow down. Let your brain stay ahead of your mouth. Think in ideas, not grammar. Speak the meaning first and let the language follow. Accept mistakes as evidence of effort. And keep talking no matter what. Read out loud every day. Train your mouth directly. Shadow real speakers. Absorb the rhythm of natural English. And most importantly, speak every single day. Even alone. Even for 5 minutes. Even when you do not feel like it. Because here's the final truth I want to leave with you. Confidence does not arrive before speaking. Confidence is built by speaking. Every conversation you attempt is a brick. Every sentence you produce is a brick. Every mistake you make and survive is a brick. 1 brick is nothing. But 10 bricks a day over 3 months is a wall. Over a year it is a house. Over time it is a life lived without fear in the language you are building. You do not need to wait until you feel ready. Nobody who became fluent waited until they felt ready. You just need to open your mouth today. Even imperfectly. Even nervously. Even with a short, simple sentence that feels too basic. Open your mouth. Because the moment you start, the freeze begins to melt. And the more you speak, the less it returns. Your English is not the problem. You never needed to be perfect. You just needed to begin. Now begin.